Having lost 2-1 to PSG in the second leg and knocked out of the Champions League, after the match Arteta said his side deserved to win the game. In football, the idea of deserving to win often clashes with the reality. Most of the time it's just frustration talking, but there are times where there's real substance behind it. So, after reading Arteta's comments, I decided to rewatch the game and assess it for myself. Was Arteta right, or did PSG's performance justify the result? Inside the first minute, Arsenal showed just how aggressive they were without the ball, pressing with all 10 outfield players deep in PSG's half. It was a complete contrast to how they started the first leg. In my last video I spoke about the off-ball tweaks Arteta made that shifted the momentum. Those ideas carried over, but this time from the very first whistle. A key difference this time was the positioning of Arsenal's right back Jurrien Timber. In the first leg he struggled to deal with Kvaratskhelia, often resorting to fouls, which gave PSG an easy release and allowed them to gain territory in Arsenal's half. In this game, however, we saw a clear adjustment. Saka stayed touched out on Nuno Mendes, cutting off his time and space on the ball. Odegaard shifted wider to the right to block the passing lane to Kvaratskhelia, and Timber acted more like a free safety, choosing when to press and when to drop off. With Arsenal squeezing the pitch so effectively, PSG were often forced to go long and surrender possession. Now, while Arsenal are amongst the best pressing sides in Europe, they don't always show it in every match. But here, they absolutely did. Arsenal's passes per defensive action, which is a measurement of how intense a team presses, was at 6.76, a clear indicator of their high pressing intensity, and they won the ball back in the final third 31 times this game, which is the most they've recorded all season in both the Champions League and in the Premier League. This aggressive approach almost paid off instantly. Timber pressed high, recovering the ball from Kvaratskhelia on the edge of the box, and whipped in a perfect cross only for Rice to head it just wide. It wasn't just in open play either. On Donnarumma's goal kicks, PSG often went long to avoid the press, but Arsenal responded by hunting in packs, outnumbering them, winning second balls and regaining control. These early stages were exactly where Arsenal needed to capitalise. It mirrored PSG's start at the Emirates in the first leg, where they scored inside 4 minutes and set the tone. But this time, despite dominating, Arsenal couldn't convert the momentum into a goal. Much of that came down to Donnarumma, who produced a string of outstanding saves. Arsenal tried to score in multiple ways, through open play, set pieces, long throws, but the Italian keeper had an answer for everything it seemed. Early on, long throws from Thomas Partey caused real problems. One deep throw-in dropped into the heart of PSG's box, forcing a scrambling save, and minutes later, Odegaard unleashed a low shot destined for the bottom corner, but Donnarumma's reaction save was ridiculous. That particular moment felt like a psychological blow. Arsenal had done nearly everything right, but still hadn't found the net. From that point on, the tone shifted. PSG began to settle, grew into the match, and Arsenal, despite continuing to push, looked like a team chasing something that kept slipping away. In settled possession, Arsenal set up in their usual 3-2 structure, and there was a clear emphasis on width. Jakub Kiwior, the left centre-half, operated almost as a left-back, stretching the pitch, whilst Timber's position was more unusual. Rather than forming the right side of the back three, he played more on the inside right, with either Odegaard or Partey occasionally dropping in to complete the build-up shape. Early on, this caused problems for PSG. William Saliba frequently found himself in acres of space, driving forward unchallenged. This was largely due to Kvaratskhelia tracking back to help defend against Saka, which disrupted PSG's press. While the plan effectively neutralised Saka in the first half, it had a cost. It invited pressure anytime Arsenal began to build attacks. PSG were pinned back and struggling to control the game. That's when Luis Enrique made a subtle adjustment, one that altered the flow of the game. Rather than keeping Kvara deep to track Saka, Enrique had him step higher and press more aggressively in Arsenal's build-up. This shift was critical in the moment that led to the goal for Paris Saint-Germain. In their usual build-up, Arsenal's defenders were spread wide. Declan Rice dropped deep to receive. Instead of Kvara dropping deep to defend Saka, he stepped out to press Rice. And this was a gamble. If Kvara mistimed it, Arsenal would have had a clean 2v1 on the wing. However, he timed his press perfectly, and that moment led directly to the free kick and eventually to PSG's opening goal. As the game wore on, Arsenal began taking more risks, pushing for a goal, but in doing so leaving them increasingly exposed. This suited PSG, who were happy to sit deeper and wait for opportunities to counter. We saw several moments where Arsenal's structure broke down. In one instance, Saliba was positioned high and wide, whilst Luis Skelly was the deepest Arsenal player holding the central space. Saliba passed to Lewis Kelly, which immediately triggered a swarm. 3 PSG players pounced, sensing a moment. Instead of clearing his lines, Lewis Kelly attempted a risky pass across the pitch. It was intercepted and PSG broke through on goal, though they failed to take advantage. These moments started to repeat. PSG couldn't convert, but Arsenal's vulnerability was becoming more visible, and as time went on without a breakthrough, errors began creeping in. Rushed passes, isolated defenders, and players stretched too far from one another. The game's tension and Arsenal's desperation began to show. Despite Arsenal's early pressure and threat from set pieces, they struggled to create much in open play. Bukayo Saka remained a consistent threat, forcing yet another outstanding save from Donnarumma, one of several big moments from the PSG keeper. PSG were then awarded a penalty for a handball on Lewis Kelly, but David Raya guessed right and saved Vitinha's effort, a moment that kept Arsenal in the tie. Later on in the game, Dembele was introduced, and his presence immediately gave PSG more threat through the middle. The goal came shortly after. Kvaratskhelia cut the ball back, Partey failed to clear, and Dembele calmly laid it off to Hakimi, who fired PSG's second into the net. After that, Arsenal responded well. The introduction of Trossard and Calafiori injected fresh energy. Trossard's cross was deflected into Saka's path, who slotted home to pull one back. Minutes later, Calafiori whipped in a dangerous ball, again finding Saka, who had a golden chance to equalise but couldn't convert. These late moments summed up the tie. Arsenal had their chances, but PSG, even when under pressure, stayed composed and took theirs. So to answer the initial question, did Arsenal deserve to win? For me, the answer is no. Arsenal put in a real effort in the second leg, but the suggestion that they deserved to win felt more like frustration from Arteta than a fair reflection of the game. This was a Champions League semi-final, and with everything on the line, and as we often see at this level, it came down to fine margins. And to end this video off, I want to congratulate PSG, who now advanced to the final. And lastly, let me know in the comments who you think will win the Champions League, and if there were any moments or tactical details I missed, drop them below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, peace.